But as I began to do and go through those things, I just remember the Lord. He continued to show me mercy and grace through my sister. So my sister, who's Amaria, as many of you know, or if you don't know, she would call me and she would say, the Lord, he loves you and he just wants to completely change you. You just have to open up and allow him to come in and open the doors. And as she continued to tell me that, you would probably think that after these circumstances, the situation, that I turned my life around right away. But no, it took people showing me love over 3 years, because before, when I was molested at this church place, my whole life had turned, my whole life had shifted. I had completely chose to go in the streets because I wanted to prove to myself that I was a man, that I wasn't vulnerable on the inside, and that if any man tried to cause harm to me, that I would put him down. It, just to be honest, that's the way I used to live life. It was just like, it was so much paranoid anxiety. It was like if somebody looked at me the wrong way, it was just like I was ready to end their life. And because I believed that they were ready to end mine, just because of the lifestyle that I lived. Now you're probably like, what do you mean by this lifestyle that you lived? It was like, being in the streets is something I truly, it's unbearable. And I know for many of you out there, if you're out there in the streets, it's unbearable because it's such a weight on your mind each and every day. It's such a, you have to drink so much, you have to do all these things just to sustain. Even with all that money they're showing you, they're not showing you what they're going through in their mind. They're not showing you what they're going through in the heart, or how they feel a certain way every time they go to sleep, or can they even go to sleep? What do they have to take to go to sleep? Because I remember every night it was pills, it was Xanax, it was Adderall, it was Percocets, it even got to a point where I was taking acid, because I just didn't want to be here. And a lot of people thought this was for my enjoyment. But the reality of the situation was I wanted death, but I didn't want to kill myself by my own hand. So instead of doing it like taking myself out, I was just going to continue to consume until I was dead on the inside. And I was just burdened with so much pain on the inside. I had blamed myself for the molestations that had occurred in my life. I blamed myself for the humiliations that I had gone in my life. I blamed myself for the many people that had rose up and decided to bring me down and tear me down, not realizing that those were demons, because they seen a destiny on the inside of me and they wanted to destroy and conquer what the Lord had told me I was meant to do on the earth. It's like all these things that were coming to fruition. It's like even me telling the story, it's sometimes it's hard for me to truly come out, but it's like I must, because it's for my generation, my nation. And I know there's so many people that suffer in the same things, and they don't come out and they don't talk about it. And especially males, they don't come out and they don't talk about how they were molested, or really it's rape, and in all actuality or truthness. It's not something that I agreed to. It's not something that I was tricked into. It was something that was forced upon me. And just going back to the last time that I was molested at 18, going and attending this church, it had pushed me and drove me all the way to the streets. And as I began to be in the streets, I just remember my friends started dying like flies. I remember the first incidents that I was hearing of people dying. And it's crazy that I'm smiling about it. It's just because the joy of the Lord's on the inside as I'm telling my testimony. So I get to do it from a place of peace and not come to you in a place of calamity. But my friends, they just started dying. And I remember my first friend, he had overdosed on 2 Xanax. And when I heard that, this had shook my whole mind. It shook my whole world, because I'm like, how are all these people beginning to die around me, and I'm doing much worse and much more than they are? It made no sense to me. It was like they were dropping like flies over the 3 years of my life, over these last 3 to 4 years of my life. And me, I was continuing to live. I was continuing to give an opportunity, a chance after chance after chance, just to get my life right with the Lord. and still I was stubborn. Still I had hatred in my heart. All I wanted to do in this life was for everybody to see my success, for everybody to see the money that I had, to see how I could afford my own cars, to see how I could take care of myself, because I felt like my whole life nobody took care of me the right way. So now I'm gonna show them that I can do it. I can do it. I can finally take care of myself. I can defend myself. I can protect myself. I am the best version of myself. But I was in deception. For all that was going on, it was just a trick of the enemy. Because even though I felt those ways at the time, it was like I never told anybody. Every night I was crying. Every night I was beating on myself. And you're probably asking, what do you mean by beat on yourself? I'm just going to come out with the full story. I remember I would take toothpicks and I would cut myself all day and all night. Because every time I would think about my friends not being here and blaming myself for their death, I would just begin to cut myself. I would begin to beat on myself. I remember like getting so drunk that I used to just punch the door until my hands would bleed. Like my fists, they would be so bloody, and they would be in blood. And I would just be hitting the doors all night, and I wouldn't stop. And I'd do this every night, and it would repeat. It never stopped until God came in and He shifted my life. He completely transformed this thing. I used to punch my face, and not just like your normal where it's like, oh, I'm gonna hit on myself. I mean, with as much force as I could put behind it, I would beat on myself day after day. Because I hated myself, to be honest. It's like that's how I know God brought me change, because I can look at the mirror and I can finally stand looking at myself. I used to hate the person inside because I blamed me for everything. I blamed me for allowing the sexual molestations. I blamed me for the addiction. I blamed me for falling into so many lies in the trap of this life. I blamed myself for seeking after God, and instead of not finding God, I found a wicked man who took advantage of me, and it turned me to the streets in a way that I never thought. It's like, it even blows my mind. It's like I used to tell God, I never knew that was possible, that somebody could go after you and search after you, and when they walk away from you, the lifestyle that they choose is the worst of the lifestyles. Because the lifestyle that I chose was a lifestyle where it was fast money. It was always partying. It was always getting drunk. It was always just trying to find something to ease my mind. And it never eased my mind, because all the friends that I had, all the popularity that I had, my city that I claimed, the way that I lived, with all these people that so-called were in my circle, with all these people in my life, I was devastated every night. And I was in a place of turmoil to the point where I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to commit suicide so bad. I remember there was days and nights where I would take 12 to 18 pills, and I would wake up the next morning and I would scratch my body all over, and I would just be itching and scratching, and my body would be, and it wouldn't let up. I would just continue to itch, and I would ask, why am I still alive? There's no way possible. There's no way possible. I took 18 of them, and I'm still alive. I didn't know now, but I know now that was God. He was grace and mercy in my life. Because there's no way that you take 18 and 19 of the most deadliest pills on this planet, and you wake up the next day like nothing happened. This is what God has done in my life. It's not only blown my mind, but this is why I live the way I live. This is why I'm in love with Jesus. This is why I worship and praise Him the way I do. Because the way I lived before, I carried a gun everywhere I went. I couldn't go anywhere, not feeling safe. Every man that looked at me wrong, I wanted to end their life. And now I look at men and I just want them to be saved.